everybody, I'm Leslie Jones, your Paper Tray Ink Make It Monday host for this week. This week we're doing something that I like to call above and below. So here's a recent example from the May Countdown. I did this with Lexi Stars and Stripes set. You've got a sentiment strip, something above, something below, above and below. Today's card I'm going to be using Botanical Bounty for the above and the below, and a Christmas Cut sentiment for the greeting. You can just see that it really frames out the sentiment really nicely and makes the design kind of dynamic. So I hope you'll join me. Let's do it.
Okay, first and foremost, apparently I knocked into my camera before I started filming, so we're a little cattywampus this week. I apologize. Hopefully it doesn't bother you too much. So I'm starting with an A2 card base cut lengthwise, so it's 4 1/4 by 11, and I'm just drawing on a couple of guidelines here that I know are going to be underneath my sentiment strip, just so I know where I'm gonna start building color and doing my sponging and things. So I like to mask off the back of the card. I'm just doing that with a piece of Post-it tape here, just in case any of my sponging kind of gets away from me. Those things tend to happen sometimes, so I just want to protect the back a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to use Aqua Mist here. I'm just going to lay down a little bit of a layer of color around those pencil lines. Again, they're going to get covered up, so I'm not even worried about them erasing them later or anything. You really aren't even able to see them once I'm all finished here. But I just want to lay down a base of Aqua Mist or base of color to give a little bit of contrast behind that sentiment strip. I also want a little bit of texture, so I'm going to go in here with the Stencil Basics Diamond stencil and add a little bit of texture with the stencil. And for good measure, why not some water droplets? So I'm just spritzing on some clean water here for a little bit more texture, all the texture. Alright, so I'm going to stamp my sentiment. This again is from Christmas Cut Sentiments in Pine Feather ink onto a strip of cardstock that's about 4 1/4 by 7/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to show you how I did all of my flowers and leaves. I've got them all done already, but I just wanted to show the technique. I get asked a lot about blended images, and this is how I always do them. So I prime my stamp with a white eraser first and foremost, and then I just ink up the first layer with whatever the base color is going to be. In this case, I'm using green parakeet. And then I take a blending sponge and a slightly darker color, and I add just a really light tap to a side or an edge to make it look shadowed. And I do it multiple times. I don't just do it once. It's kind of like applying spray paint to me. It's multiple light coats give you a better outcome than one thick heavy coat. So you don't have to worry about harsh edges this way. It looks a little more gradual, and I just generally like the end result a lot better. So there you go. And that is how I did all of the flowers and leaves. So I'm using Bright Buttercup, Summer Sunrise, Orange Zest, Hibiscus Burst, Raspberry Fizz. Those are all the flowers. And then I've got Limeade Ice, Green Parakeet, New Leaf, and Pine Feather for the leaves. So here I have my sentiment strip and my card base. You can see that all of that blending and texturing that we did earlier adds a nice contrast between the sentiment strip and the card base, in case there are any like blank empty spots that you can see between the leaves and the flowers once we're all assembled here. I'm just adding a thin strip of foam tape down the center. I do that to leave enough room on the edges that I can sort of tuck the leaves and flowers and things underneath. And speaking of arranging the leaves and flowers, I actually have the whole process start to finish here for you, just sped up a little bit so you can see the whole process. fun to watch. Okay, so now that all of my arrangement is done, I'm just going back with a pair of sharp scissors to snip off any overhanging bits. If you're using a bigger envelope, you don't necessarily have to do this, but some of my leaves looked a little funny with the ends all just hanging out there, so I decided to snip off all the extra overhangy bits. So there you go. That's what it looks like once all the trimming up is done and the finished work is done. But you know what? It could use a little something. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of curl up the leaves and some of the flower bits and things just to give it a little more dimension and make it look a little more full and textural. It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference. So it's worth the extra effort. So there we go. There is our above and below card for this week. I hope you will join me by going to the Papertrey Ink blog, checking out the challenge details, making your own project, and linking it up for your chance to win a $25 gift certificate. This has been Lizzie Jones for Papertrey Ink's Make It Monday. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great week.